And that when, what was the first thing that Saul did wrong? Do we remember? And that, you remember when he offered the burnt offerings, he was told to wait 7 days, and he chose to do the sacrifice himself because Samuel was, in his mind, was we wait. And then, that's when he was told the kingdom was going to be taken away from him. And then do we also remember when Saul also went up against the Philistines and that, not the Philistines, went up against them that were supposed to.
Agag?
Yes, King Agag was supposed to go up against them and completely wipe them out, whatever thing. And, he goes to Samuel afterwards when he's asked, what do I hear about the bleeding animals and what about the king? And we watched him make excuses. And that, he's been told to, what do you call it? David, we've got anointed in secret last week when we studied by Samuel. And now we can see Saul is very, very jealous of David at this point. And with David, and they just got him fit to be tied. And here he is. He's already tried to kill David with a spear. And now we're going to keep on reading just how far this keeps on going. He just can't seem to come to terms with that, all he has to do is repent and stop at any time here. But, I guess if you wait too long to do something, it can take hold of you, and then, it's a hard place to get back from, I'm guessing. In Saul's case, he never does. So chapter 20 of 1 Samuel. Then David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life?" And he said to him, "Lord, permit, you shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this from me? It is not so." But David replied, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he thinks, but not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death." Then said Jonathan to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit at table with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked of me to run to Bethlehem, his city. For there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he says, good, it will be well with your servant. But if he is angry, then know that evil is determined by him. Therefore deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a sacred covenant with you. But if there is guilt in me, slay me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father?" And Jonathan said, "Far be it from you, if I knew that it was determined by my father that evil should come upon you. Would I not tell you?" Then said David to Jonathan, "Who will tell me if your father answers you roughly?" And Jonathan said to David, "Come, let us go out into the field." So they both went out into the field. So I'll stop there to remember. What is he talking about? Your servant is into a sacred covenant with them. Do we remember when David, earlier on, and met Jonathan, they were knit together and they made a covenant together? So this is a covenant that he's talking about. And also notice where we're reading about Jonathan. Jonathan trusts his father all the way. he knows nothing about in his heart. It sounds like about what's, in Saul's heart. I found it interesting that you could mask it from his son, but obviously it was like David said, in that, he knows there's Jonathan and David to get together, and he's not going to tell him, obviously. And watch what this does now as we read on here a little bit, and that it's going to really affect Jonathan and David. 12. And Jonathan said to David, "The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness, when I have sounded my father about this time tomorrow, on the third day, behold, if he is well disposed toward David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you? But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also, if I do not disclose it to you, and send you all away, that you may go in safety." Notice that right there. So far, everything we read in Judges and through Samuel now, everything that where it says, where is it? So in verse 13, "But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also, if I do not disclose it to you." We always notice that the Lord listens to these agreements between people. And notice how this is going to affect their relationship as it moves on a little bit. And then, "May the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, show me the loyal love of the Lord, that I may not die. And do not cut off your loyalty from my house forever. When the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth, let not the name of Jonathan be cut off from the house of David. And may the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies." And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty, and on the third day you will be greatly missed. Then go to the place where you hid yourself when the matter was in hand, and remain beside yonder stone heap. And I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send the lad, saying, Go find the arrows. If I say to the lad, Look, the arrows are on this side of you, take them, then you are to come, for as the Lord lives, it is safe for you, and there is no danger. But if I say to the youth, Look, the arrows are beyond you, then go to the Lord, then go, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the matter of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever." Notice that now. So 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat upon his seat, as at other times, upon the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Yet Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought something has befallen him. He is not queen. Surely he is not queen. But on the second day, the morrow after the new moon, David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan his son, Why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave from me to go to Bethlehem. He said, Let me go, for our family holds a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives upon the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and fetch him to me, for he shall surely die." Then Jonathan answered Saul his father, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" But Saul cast his spear at him to smite him. So Jonathan then knew that his father was determined to put David to death. And Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had disgraced him. In the morning Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him a little lad. And he said to his lad, "Run and find the arrows which I shoot." As the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him, and when the lad came to the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the lad and said, "Is it not the arrow beyond you?" And Jonathan called after the lad, "Hurry, make haste, stay not." So Jonathan's lad gathered up and the arrows and came to his master. But the lad knew nothing, only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad and said to him, "Go and carry them to the city." And as soon as the lad had gone, David rose beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept with one another until David recovered himself. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord shall be between me and you, and between my descendants and you, your descendants forever.'" And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Gave him the holy bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which is removed from before the Lord, to be replaced by hot bread on the day it was taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg. the land? Did they not sing to one another of him in dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000. And David took these words to heart, and was much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them, and feigned himself mad in their hands, and made marks on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle run down his beard. Then said Achish to his servants, Lo, you see the man is mad. Why then have you brought him to me? Do I lack madman, that you have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? Interesting how this is all taking place in that. In 22, David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brother and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him, and everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontent gathered to him, and he became captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, Pray, let my father and my mother stay with you till I know what God will do for me. And he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet Gad said to David, Do not remain in the stronghold. Depart and go into the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. And Saul said to his servants who stood about him, Hear now, you Benjamites, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, that all of you have conspired against me? No one disclosed to me when my son makes a league with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me, or disclosed to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait at this day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood by the servants of Saul, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Amalek the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to summon Amalek the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, Hear now, son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said to him, Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, and that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen against me, to lie in wait as at this day? And Amalek answered the king, And who among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, and captain over your bodyguard, and honored in your house? Is today the first time that I have inquired of God for him? No, let not the king impute anything to his servant, or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all this, much or little. And the king said, You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house. And the king said to the guard who stood about him, Turn and kill the priest of the Lord, because their hand also is with David. And he knew that he fled, and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priest of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, You turn and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned and fell upon the priest, and he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priests, he put to the sword both men and women, children and sucklings, oxen, asses, and sheep, he put to the sword. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priest of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, I knew of that on that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, fear not, for he that seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping. So notice, David takes the responsibility for this right now. He knew, he kind of lied to Ahimelech and that, and got him to get what he needed. But there, because that Edomite was there, and that he's the one who Doeg decides to go ahead and kill all the priests. So we can see now, all these lies that Saul keeps on doing, he's gone past lying now. It's taken people's lives and that. People are getting killed because of his being angry against, David basically. He can't control it, he can't get rid of it. The more he tries. And notice, Doeg the Edomite had to kill him. The servants wouldn't kill him, would they? And that, I'm pretty sure God had his hand in that right there. And that, and then now look what happens. It's just turning into a bigger and bigger and bigger mess because, Saul has it started out with no self-esteem, and he still doesn't have any self-esteem. 23. Now they told David, behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah and are robbing the threshing floor. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, shall I go and attack these Philistines? And the Lord said to David, go and attack the Philistines and save Keilah. But David's men said to him, behold, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more than if we go to Keilah against the army of the Philistines? And then David inquired of the Lord again. And the Lord answered him, arise, go down to Keilah, for I will give the Philistines into your hand. And David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines and brought away their cattle and made a great slaughter among them. So David delivered the inhabitants of Keilah. So notice again, look at the trust that David has in the Lord, and that even when his men, asked him to inquire again, he goes before the Lord, he inquires again, and I like the way David just follows through. He does what the Lord tells him to do. It'd be nice if, as Christians, we could just do exactly what Jesus tells us to do all the time and save ourselves a whole lot of trouble. 6. When Abiathar the son of Ahimelech went to David to Keilah, he came down with an ephod in his hand. Now it was told Saul that David had come to Keilah. And Saul said, God has given him into my hand, for he has shut himself in by entering a town that has gates and bars. And Saul summoned all the people to war to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. David knew that Saul was plotting evil against him, and he said to Abiathar the priest, bring the ephod here. Then said David, O Lord, the God of Israel, thy servant has surely heard that Saul seeks to come to Keilah to destroy the city on my account. Will the men of Keilah surrender me into his hand? Will Saul come down as thy servant has heard? O Lord, the God of Israel, I beseech thee, tell thee thy servant. And the Lord said, he will come down. Then said David, will the men of Keilah surrender me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, they will surrender you. Then David and his men, who were about 600, arose and departed from Keilah. And they went wherever they could go. When Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he gave up the expedition, and David remained in the stronghold in the wilderness, in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God did not give him into his hands. So notice how David's army has grown from 400 to 600 now, and that in this little bit of time. And that, and he's back into the strongholds. These are basically caves in the mountains, basically, where they're taking up shelter. 15. And David was afraid because Saul had come out to seek his life. David was in the wilderness at Horus. And Jonathan, Saul's son, rose and went to David at Horus and strengthened his hand in God. And he said to him, Fear not, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Saul my father also knows this. And the two of them made a covenant before the Lord. David remained at Horus, and Jonathan went home. Then when the Ziphites went up to Saul at Gibeah, saying, Does not David hide among us in the strongholds at Horus, on the hills of Hachilah, which is south of Jeshimon? Now come down, O king, according to all your heart's desire to come down, and our part shall be to surrender him into the king's hand. And Saul said, May you be blessed by the Lord, for you have had compassion on me. Go, make yet more sure. Know and see the place where his haunt is, and who has seen him there. For it is told me that he is very cunning. See therefore, and take note of all the lurking places where he hides, and come back to me with sure information. Then I will go with you, and if he is in the land, I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah. And they arose and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah to the south of Jeshimon. And Saul and his men went to seek him, and David was told. Therefore he went down to the rock which is in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard that he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon, Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. And David was making haste to get away from Saul, as Saul and his men were closing in upon David and his men to capture them. When a messenger came to Saul, saying, Make haste and come, for the Philistines had made a raid upon the land. So Saul returned from pursuing after David and went against the Philistines. Therefore that place was called the Rock of Escape, and David went up from there and dwelt in the stronghold of Engedi. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, Behold, David is in the wilderness of Engedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the wild goats, rocks. And he came to the sheepfold by the way where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost part of the cave. And the men of David said to him, Here is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you. Then David arose and stealthily cut off the skirt of Saul's robe. And afterward David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. He said to his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord. The Lord's anointed, to put forth my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed. So David persuaded his men with these words, and did not permit them to attack Saul. And Saul rose up and left the cave and went upon his way. Again, notice that, he wasn't about to kill Saul. The Lord had anointed him. This was going to be by someone else's hand, but not David's. And that, how do you say, he holds Saul in too high esteem. Praise God, anointed him basically. and it's not going to be him. And 8, afterward David also arose and went out of the cave and called after Saul, my lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and did obeisance. And David said to Saul, why do you listen to the words of men who say, behold, David seeks you your hurt? Lo, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you today into my hand in the cave, and some bade me kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, see the skirt of your robe in my hand, by the fact that I cut off the skirt of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see that there is no wrong or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you hunt me my life to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me upon you, but my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients say, out of the wickedness comes forth wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. May the Lord therefore judge and give sentence between me and you, and see to it, and plead my cause, and deliver me from your hand. Pretty amazing what he's saying right there. You know, he knows vengeance is going to be the Lord's, it's not going to be his.
He's still the Lord's king,
Mm-hmm.
as wicked as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, he accepts his fate, but he doesn't seem to repent of anything. You know, David could have killed him, but David says, that's not my place. That's good, you know, God's going to do his business. But we see that Saul, he doesn't seem to change his heart at all after all of this. You know, he knows that David's going to be king. He knows it. But yet he does not go along with what he's supposed to be doing. So that's how hard his heart was.
I mean, you don't think it can get worse than this, but yet as we read on, it even gets worse than this even. I find that amazing how anger can just build and must just literally rip you apart inside somehow. Because
And it's a shame that Jonathan will never see David as king.
mm-hmm.
You know, it was like he didn't get to see that. As much as Jonathan helped David, showed his love to him, and actually disobeying his father in protecting David, but yet he didn't get to see David as a king.
Remember how young these people are too. I mean, David's not even yet 30 at this point, because David's reign begins at 30 and that. So, I mean, David's, I don't know, maybe in his 20s at this point in time and that. And, you know, I imagine Jonathan was too. It's, talk about a challenge for, you know, for young men right now. 16. When David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt with me, that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hands. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away safe? So may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. And now behold, I know that you shall surely be king, and that the king of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me therefore by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house." And David swore this to Saul. Then Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. So we can see, you know, Saul gives recognition right here, but watch what we read about, you know, pretty quick now again. right afterwards. Now 25 is where Samuel goes out of the picture. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his house at Ramah. Then David rose and went down to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. And the man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. He was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of that man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. The woman was of good understanding and beautiful, but the man was curlish and ill-behaved. He was a Calebite. David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, so David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name, and thus you shall salute him. Peace be to you, and peace to your house, and peace be to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Pray, give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David." When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and they waited. And Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men who come from I do not know where?" So David's young man turned away and came back and told them all this. And David said to his men, "Every man gird on his sword," and every man of them girded on his sword. David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master," and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything when we were in the fields. As long as we went with them, they were a wall to us, both by night and by day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this, and consider what you should do, for evil determines against our master and against all his house, and he is so ill-natured that one cannot speak to him." Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep ready, dressed in 5 measures of parched grain and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said to her young men, "Go on before me. Behold, I come after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And as she rode on the ass and came down under cover of the mountain, behold, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned me evil for good. God do to David, and much more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him." When Abigail saw David, she made haste and alighted from the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Upon me alone, my Lord, be the guilt. Pray let your handmaid speak in your ears and hear the words of your handmaid. Let my Lord regard this ill-natured fellow, Nabal, for all his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your handmaid, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent." Now then, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, seeing the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt and from taking vengeance with your own hand, now then let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my Lord be as Nabal, and now let this presence which your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Pray forgive the trespasses of your handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord is fighting the battles of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies shall be swinging out as far as from the hollow of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, my Lord shall have no cause of grief or pangs of conscience, or having shed blood without cause, or for my Lord take vengeance himself. And when the Lord has dealt with my Lord, then remember your handmaid. And that's what this woman has done. She's literally stopped a slaughter and that all on her own. And look at how much she recognizes about David too. You know, she knows God's with him. I mean, pretty amazing, you know. She can see all this, and she just put, you know, how to say it, you know, she even helped David with, you know, his anger and that, put it aside. Just one woman was able to do all this just because of good nature. 32, and David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who have kept me this day from blood guilt and from avenging myself with my own hand. For as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has restrained me from hurting you, unless you had made haste and come to meet me, truly by morning there had not been left to Nabal so much as one male. Then David received from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, go up in peace to your house. See, I have hearkened to your voice, and I have granted your petition. And Abigail came to Nabal, and lo, he was holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until the morning light. And in the morning, when the wine had gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And about 10 days later, the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received at the hand of Nabal, and has kept back his servants from evil. The Lord has returned the evil doing to Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and wooed Abigail to make her his wife. And when the servants of David came to Abigail at Carmel, they said to her, David has sent us to you to take you to him as his wife. And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servant of my Lord. And Abigail made haste and rose and mounted on an ass, and 5 maidens attended her. She went after the messengers of David and became his wife. David also turned to Ahinoam of Jezreel, and both of them became his wives. Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Paltai, the son of Laish, who was of Galen. I mean, I found that interesting in verse 41. Notice what she says in that. And she rose and bowed with her face to the ground and said, behold, your handmaid is a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Notice, I mean, you can take care of everyone for him. Very interesting woman in that, how she's wording all this.
Well, when you look at the feast she prepared, it looks like she could handle it. 200 loaves of bread, 5 dressed sheep, 100 cakes of raisins. Yeah. Yeah, she was very capable.
Yep. And that, she had a pretty good idea, who she was feeding, 400 men. So, actually 600, 400 were going out, and there's still 200 in camp. So, she looked like she brought plenty to make it happen. 26. Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, "Is not David hiding himself on the hill of Hakawah, which is on the east of Jeshimon?" So Saul arose and went down to the wilderness of Ziph with 3,000 chosen men of Israel to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul encamped on the hill of Hakawah, which is beside the road on the east of Jeshimon. But David remained in the wilderness, and when he saw that Samuel came after him into the wilderness, David sent out spies and learned of a certain certainty that Saul had come. Then David rose and camped to the place where Saul had encamped, and David saw the place where Saul lay, with Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Saul was lying within the encampment, while the army was encamped around him. Then David said to Amalek, the Hittite, and to Joab, brother Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, who will go down with me into the camp of Saul. And Abishai said, "I will go down with you." So David and Abishai went to the army by night, and there lay Saul sleeping with the encampment, with his spear stuck in the ground at his head, and Abner and the army lay around him. Then said Abishai to David, "God has given your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore let me pin him to the earth with one stroke of the spear, and I will not strike him twice." But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who can put forth his hand against the Lord's anointed, and be guiltless?" And David said, "As the Lord lives, the Lord will smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should put forth my hand against the Lord's anointed, but take now the spear that is at his head and the jar of water, and let us go." So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it or knew it, nor did any awake, for they were all asleep, because the deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them. Notice that he's not even going to let one of his men be guilty to the Lord for something, and that leave it alone, the Lord will take care of it. And that he wasn't about to, let someone else do the deed that he knew wasn't supposed to be done. 13. Then David went over to the other side and stood afar off on the top of the mountain with a great space between them. And David called to the army, to Abner the son of Ner, saying, "Will you not answer, Abner?" Then Abner answered, "Who are you that calls to the king?" And David said to Abner, "Are you not a man who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not kept watch over your lord, the king? For one of the people came in to destroy the king your lord. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, you deserve to die, because you have not kept watch over your lord, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the jar of water that was at his head." Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" And David said, "It is my voice, my lord, O king." And he said, why does my Lord pursue after his servant? For what have I done? What guilt is on my hands? Now therefore let my Lord the king hear the words of his servant. If it is the Lord who has stirred you up against me, may he accept an offering. But if it is men, may they be cursed before the Lord, for they have driven me out this day that I should have no share in the heritage of the Lord, saying, go serve other gods. Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth away from the presence of the Lord, for the king of Israel has come out to seek my life, like one who hunts a partridge in the mountains. Then Saul said, I have done wrong. Return, my son David, for I will no more do you harm, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly. And David made answer, here is the spear, O king. Let one of your young men come over and fetch it. The Lord rewards every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. The Lord gave you into my hand today, and I would not put forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. Behold, as your life was precious this day in my sight, so may my life be precious in the sight of the Lord, and may he deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, blessed be you, my son David. You will do many things and will succeed in them. So David went his way, and Saul returned to his place. Notice in 24 now what he says, behold, as your life was precious this day in my sight, so may my life be precious in the sight of the Lord, and may deliver me out of all tribulation. He doesn't care what he looks like in the sight of Saul, and that he wants to know that, his life is precious to God himself. It doesn't matter to him what Saul thinks.
Can you say that again, Matt?
It doesn't seem to matter to David, what Saul thinks of him, and that it's more about what the Lord thinks of him, and that he says, may the Lord be precious, or may I be precious in the Lord's sight, and that how it's worded. He's saying this to Saul. He's not in that. You would think it would be the other way. That he'd be precious in Saul's sight, but that's not what he asked for. And that, he cares more about what the Lord thinks of him than Saul, is what I'm taking from this. And that, another interesting thing he's saying to the man that's, chasing you across the country. And that, he's not looking for, for everything from Saul. Anyways, I probably ought to stop there. Would you take over, Oxley?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
It's red, Oxley. It's not going to work. It's red.
If it's red, it'll still, it just means it's almost dead.
Okay.
If there's
It's
nothing,
red.
then it's,
I just noticed it when I turned it off.
A little bit of red left.
yeah.
396. No, not one.
There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. No, not one. None else could heal all our souls' diseases. No, not one. No, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. so meek and lowly. No, not one, no, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one, no, not one. There's not an hour that he is not near us. No, not one, no, not one. No, not so dark, but his love can cheer us. No, not one, no, not one. Jesus knows all about our struggles. He will guide till the day is done. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one, no, not one.
Just got a few announcements before we close in prayer. The sheets that were handed out for appointing deacons, we need to fill them out and to hand them back by July 1st, because then that's when we're going to start our process of the congregation will have the job of selecting the deacons, so please remember to fill those out and bring those back.
Actually, I think we want it back by June 1st, and then hopefully we'll
Okay,
select.
by June 1st and then by July 1st, the church can go ahead and do the selection. So by June 1st, we need them all by then, and then by July 1st is when the congregation will select the deacons. Elders and members, this is just something we've been thinking about. Having an informal meeting to be announced after services like we did a couple months ago. So it'll just be a short meeting, but just want everybody to know what's going on. All right. And the elders preachers meeting June 1st. We'll be getting together with all the ones that does the preaching or does the preaching, and try to get a handle on exactly what direction, what kind of topics we're going to be needing or we're going to be wanting for this. So let's remember all this. Let's remember the funeral for Sister Edna is going to be this Friday at 11 a.m. at Martin Mortuary. They're on North Avenue. And afterwards, it's going to be a catered lunch. So if you can attend, please, because it would sure help the family and their support for the loss of Sister Edna. Sure came as a surprise to me because we just saw her last Sunday. And that just goes to show you right there, we don't know anything. You know, we just don't know. So please remember that if you can. If there's nothing, is there anything else before we close? Let's go to God in prayer. Righteous Father in heaven, as we approach you this evening, we ask you to pray that as we studied a portion of your word and heard the word spoken, we pray, Father, they were done with honor and glory to you. Continue to ask, Father, to help the church here as we strive to do what is right and pleasing in your sight, that you give us wisdom and the ability to know what we need to be doing to make this the church that you want. I ask, Holy Father, that you be with the leaders of our land, that you be with them, that they rule wisely. Continually, Father, give us the strength to always remember your Son, Jesus Christ, and to never, ever be ashamed of it. Forgive us when we fail you. All these favors and blessings we ask through Christ, your Son and our Savior. Amen.
Good. Just, we're finishing up our last week of school this week, so I'll probably get most of my stuff back to Craig this weekend. And,